The stars were bright above the alien world, but brightness did not mean hope. On this world called Varus, a poor human widow walked slowly through the dusty streets, her child in her arms, her heart heavy with sorrow. Her husband had died years ago in a mining accident, leaving her with nothing but a weak body and a hungry child. The aliens of Varus looked at her with cold eyes. To them, she was just another fragile human, too soft, too weak, too useless. Every morning she woke before the sun, hoping to find work, hoping to earn enough food for her son. But no matter where she went, no matter how many doors she knocked on, she always heard the same answer. Humans cannot work here. You will slow us down. Or sometimes, we don't need beggars. Leave. Her child, a thin boy with tired eyes, coughed in her arms, each cough a sharp knife in her heart. Medicine was expensive, far too expensive, and without a job she could never buy it. Still, she kept walking, because giving up meant death, and she could not let her child die. The city around her was not kind. Tall alien towers rose into the gray sky, their lights glowing like fireflies, but the ground was filled with dirt, trash, and broken souls. Aliens of many species worked, traded, and laughed, but none looked at her with kindness. She was invisible, and when she was not invisible, she was hated. As she passed through the market, the voices of alien sellers filled the air. Strange fruits, glowing metals, machines that hummed like beasts, all sold to those who could pay. But she had no money. Her stomach growled. Her son whispered weakly, "Mama, I'm hungry." She bit her lip and whispered back, "Just a little longer, my son. Just a little longer." Her steps slowed. Her heart begged for help, but her pride forced her to keep moving. Still, deep inside, she knew time was running out. The aliens judged her not only because she was human, but because she was a widow. On Varus, family meant strength. A strong partner meant security. A woman alone was seen as broken, and a human woman alone was worse than broken. She was a burden, so doors closed before she could even speak. Her child's cough echoed in the silent streets, a cruel reminder of her helplessness. But fate has strange ways, and in that market, among the noise and dust, a pair of eyes followed her. Not alien eyes, not cold or cruel, but human eyes. They belonged to a traveler, tall, strong, and silent, standing in the shadow of a stall. He watched the widow as she begged, as she was pushed away, as she fought tears. Something in her struggle caught his heart, though she did not yet know it. The widow stopped at one more stall, her voice shaking. "Please, I will work for little pay. I can clean, I can carry, anything." The alien seller, with hard gray skin and sharp teeth, laughed loudly. "Work? You? Human bones break too easy. Go away." The laughter spread to the others. The widow turned away, cheeks burning, holding her child tighter. Her son's cough grew harsher. His head rested weakly against her shoulder. She blinked fast, fighting back tears, but her heart felt like it would shatter. She found a quiet corner near the old gates of the city. She sat on the ground, holding her son close, whispering stories of Earth, though she had never seen it. Stories her husband once told her, of blue skies, of rivers that shone like glass, of forests filled with life. The boy smiled faintly, though weak, and for a moment, she too believed in those stories. But then his cough came back, heavy, painful, and she remembered her cruel truth. The market crowd moved on, but the human traveler stayed. His eyes never left her. He had seen hunger before, he had seen pain before, but something about this widow was different. Her courage, her wet fight against despair. It stirred something inside him, and slowly, he stepped out from the shadows. His boots touched the dusty ground, his figure strong, his gaze calm. The widow did not see him yet, her mind too lost in fear. As the suns of Varus began to set, painting the sky red and gold, the widow closed her eyes for a moment. Her child whispered one word, "Help," so soft it almost broke the air. The widow's heart ached. She could not give him what he needed. But then a voice spoke, a voice not alien, not cruel, but human. "Maybe I can help." The widow froze. Her eyes opened wide. She turned her head slowly. There, standing before her, was the stranger, the traveler. His eyes were steady, his voice firm yet kind. For the first time in years, she saw not rejection, not cruelty, but something else. Something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The stars shone again above Varus, brighter than before. The widow did not yet know it, but her life was about to change, because in a world where no alien wanted her, a human had come, and his choice would shape not only her fate, but the fate of her child, and perhaps, the fate of many more. The next morning came with gray skies over Varus. The widow woke before the suns rose, her son still weak in her arms, his breathing soft but shallow. She had no choice but to return to the marketplace, the heart of the alien city, where thousands gathered to trade, buy, and sell. If there was hope for work, it had to be there, even though every visit had ended in shame. The marketplace was alive with noise, alien voices mixing like storm winds. Vendors shouted in strange tongues, offering bright fruits, humming machines, and sharp tools. The air was thick with spices, smoke, and the metallic scent of fuel. But for the widow, all this life meant nothing, because she carried no money, only desperation. Her son clung to her shoulder, whispering weakly, "Mama, I feel cold." She kissed his forehead, feeling his heat, fear growing in her chest. She whispered back, "Hold on, little one, I will find sauce. A meeting today, I must." Her feet carried her deeper into the market, though her heart feared more rejection. The aliens were not cruel for no reason. On Varus, humans were seen as second-class, weak laborers, fit only for small tasks. But even those small tasks were guarded closely, because the aliens believed humans could not survive their harsh world. And so each step the widow took, each face she begged, brought only shaking heads and bitter words. At the first stall she tried, a tall insectoid alien with shining eyes hissed at her. "Leave, human. We do not hire your kind. Your bones break too easily." The widow lowered her head, muttered thanks, and moved on. At the second stall, a reptilian merchant waved his long tail in anger. "You cannot lift even half of what my workers carry. Why waste my time?" The widow clutched her son tighter, her heart sinking, yet she pushed forward. Still, she begged at the next stall and the next. Her voice grew smaller each time, her hope fading. The aliens laughed at her ragged clothes, at the child who coughed weakly in her arms. One alien muttered to another, "Humans should stay on their dying Earth. They bring nothing here but weakness." The words stabbed deep into her soul, but she kept walking, because stopping meant death. The crowd pressed around her, alien faces of every color and shape. She felt smaller with every step, as if the whole universe had decided she was nothing. But in the corner of her eye, she noticed him again. The human traveler from yesterday, standing in the shadows near the metal gates. He watched her, silent, his eyes following every rejection. She tried to ignore him, because she did not believe anyone would truly help her. At midday, the widow grew weaker, her feet heavy, her stomach empty. Her son coughed again, the sound sharper, longer, and blood appeared at the corner of his lips. She almost fell to her knees in panic, but she steadied herself, whispering softly, "Stay with me, my son, stay with me." The market spun around her, voices too loud, colors too bright, her heart racing with fear, but she forced herself to the next stall. This time she spoke with trembling voice, "Please, I will work for very little, just enough for medicine. I can clean, I can carry." The alien before her, a massive beast with 4 arms and glowing tusks, leaned close. He laughed, the sound like thunder. "You? Carry? Even your tears are weak. Go before I crush you." The crowd nearby joined in the laughter, their mocking voices echoing in her ears. Her cheeks burned with shame. Her child hid his face in her shoulder, too afraid to look. The widow turned away, her body shaking, tears welling in her eyes. She walked until the laughter faded behind her, until she reached a quiet alley near the market walls. There she sank down, holding her child tight, whispering to calm him, though her own heart was breaking. The child asked in a weak voice, "Mama, why don't they want us?" Her lips trembled as she answered, "Because they don't understand us, because they don't see what humans can do." But inside, she wondered if even she believed her own words anymore. Yet the human traveler still watched. He had seen enough. He could no longer stay silent. He stepped forward at last, boots firm against the stone, his shadow stretching across the alley. The widow noticed him then, and fear filled her. She thought he was another cruel man ready to mock her, but his voice broke the silence, calm and strong. "You should not beg them. They will never see your worth." The widow looked up, eyes red from tears, confused and desperate. Her child turned too, eyes wide. The traveler's gaze was steady. He spoke again. "But I see it, and I have work, if you are willing to trust me." Suspense filled the air. The widow froze, unsure if this was hope or a trap. Her son coughed again, his body weak, his eyes pleading with her to listen. And in that moment, she knew she had no choice but to hear what this stranger had to say. The market roared on behind them, filled with rejection and noise. But here in the quiet alley, something new had begun. A chance, a risk, maybe even salvation. For the first time in years, the widow felt the smallest spark of hope. But hope, she knew, could be dangerous, because if it was false, it would break her completely. The traveler held out his hand, not forcing, but offering, and the widow stared at it, her heart beating fast, her mind torn between fear and need. Above them, the suns of Varus slowly began to sink, their red glow painting the sky like fire. The widow's decision would change everything, though she did not yet know how. And in the shadows of the market of rejection, a new path quietly opened. The alley was quiet compared to the roaring market. The widow sat on the stone ground, her child leaning weakly against her, his cough still echoing in her ears. And before her stood the human traveler, his tall frame blocking the fading suns, his eyes calm yet sharp, like a man who had seen too many storms. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The widow simply stared at him, unsure if he was danger or mercy. Finally, the traveler spoke, his voice steady. "You do not belong here. Begging them will only break you more. But I can give you work, if you are willing to trust me." The widow's hands tightened around her child, her heart beating fast. "Work," he said, yet so many had already refused her. Why would this stranger be different? Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why me? Why help a human widow? What do you gain?" The traveler did not flinch. Instead, he lowered himself to her level, his tone quiet but firm. "Because I was once like you, and because I know what you carry is more than weakness, it is strength, even if you don't see it yet, Devi." Widow felt her chest tighten. His words struck something deep inside her. Still, fear clouded her. "Everyone says humans are weak, too soft for real work. If I fail you, what then?" The traveler's lips curved into a faint smile. "Then you fail, but you will not, because humans are not weak, they are different, and in the right place, difference is survival." He looked at her child, his gaze softening. "And your boy deserves more than hunger and coughing in the dark." The widow trembled, torn between hope and fear. She wanted to believe him, yet the world had taught her that kindness always came with a hidden blade. Her voice shook as she asked, "What kind of work? What must I do?" The traveler leaned back, his eyes flickering with something serious. "It is not safe work. It is not easy. It is in a place where even aliens hesitate to go, but it pays enough for medicine, food, and more." The widow froze. Danger, always there was danger, yet what choice did she have? Her son's cough burned in her ears, every sound a reminder of time slipping away. She whispered, almost to herself, "If I die, what will happen to him?" The traveler's answer was quick, almost fierce. "Then I will protect him. I swear on my life." Silence stretched between them, the market noises distant. The widow looked at this man, this stranger, who had no reason to help her. And yet here he was, offering more than all the powerful aliens around her. Her eyes searched his face, his scars, his tired yet steady gaze. For the first time, she saw not pity, but respect. Not cruelty, but something stronger, resolve. Her son stirred weakly, opening his eyes to look at the traveler, his voice soft but clear. "Mama, maybe we can trust him. Maybe he is different." The widow felt tears rise at her son's words. She pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "For you, I will try, even if it costs me everything." She turned back to the traveler, her hands shaking but her voice firm. "I will do it. Tell me where. Tell me how." The traveler nodded slowly, as if he had expected her answer. "Good, yeah. I will not regret this, though the path will test you." He helped her stand, his grip strong and steady. As they walked away from the alley, the widow noticed how the aliens in the market looked at him, not with mockery but with caution, almost fear. Whispers followed him, though she could not hear the words clearly. It made her wonder, who exactly was this man, and why did even the proud aliens seem wary of him? The traveler led her through the crowded streets until the market noise faded, until the tall alien towers gave way to massive metal structures on the city's edge. Smoke rose from chimneys. The air grew heavy with dust and ash, the ground vibrated with the sound of machines. The widow felt her stomach twist. Even before he spoke, she knew this was the place he meant. He stopped before a massive gate, its surface dark and scarred, alien guards standing watch with cold eyes. "This is the factory," he said quietly. "A place where machines eat workers alive. A place where no alien wants to stay long, but humans can last here longer than they expect." The widow shivered, fear crawling up her spine. "And you worked here?" she asked. The traveler nodded once, his voice heavy. "I survived here, I learned here, and now, you will too." The widow's grip on her son tightened, her voice low. "If I cannot do this, if I am too weak." The traveler cut her off, his tone sharp but not unkind. "You will not know until you try. But listen, weakness is not falling down. Weakness is refusing to stand up again, and I have already seen that you are stronger than they think." The widow looked at the factory again. The smoke, the guards, the noise like thunder. She wanted to run, to hide, but then her child coughed, the sound tearing through her heart, reminding her why she had no choice. She closed her eyes, breathed deep, and whispered, "Then I will do it, for him." The traveler gave a short nod, his eyes shining with something like pride. "Tomorrow, you begin, and I will be with you." The sons of Varus had fallen now, the city glowing in red lights and shadows. The widow held her child close, the traveler walking at her side. The path ahead was dark and filled with danger, but for the first time in many years, she carried not only fear, but also a small, fragile hope. And as the machines of the factory roared in the distance, she knew her story had taken a turn that no alien could have written, because now she was not alone. The dawn broke with a pale light over Varus. The widow stood before the gates of the alien factory, her child's hand in hers, and the human traveler by her side. The air was heavy with smoke and iron. Machines thundered inside the walls, each sound like a beast growling in hunger. She wanted to turn away, to run far from this place. But her son's cough reminded her why she had to stay, why she had to fight. The factory was a monstrous thing, built from black steel that rose higher than any tower in the city. Its pipes leaked steam into the cold air, and strange alien symbols glowed red along the walls. Alien guards, their skin rough and their eyes burning with suspicion, stared at the widow as if she were already defeated. One of them spat on the ground and muttered, "Another human, she won't last a day." The widow lowered her gaze, her heart pounding, but the traveler placed a firm hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Do not listen, let them see later." Inside, the air was worse, thick with smoke and dust that burned her throat. The floor shook with every movement of the giant machines, gears grinding and sparks flying. Workers moved like shadows, alien bodies bent and tired, yet none looked as weak as the widow felt in that first moment. Her child clung to her leg, his wide eyes full of fear, but also of wonder at the giant machines that surrounded them. The factory master, a tall alien with silver skin and a voice like Brea. King Metal stepped forward. He looked at the widow with clear disdain. "You, human, cannot survive here. This work breaks bones and burns lungs. Why waste my time?" The traveler met the alien's gaze without fear. "She will work, and she will last. I vouch for her." The master's eyes narrowed. "If she fails, both of you are gone." The widow swallowed hard, her knees trembling, but she nodded. "I will not fail." Her first task came quickly. The alien workers tossed heavy crates toward her, expecting her to fall. The widow bent, her arms shaking as she lifted the first crate, heavier than anything she had carried before. Her breath came short, her back screamed in pain, but she thought of her son, watching her, and she refused to drop it. Step by step, she carried it across the floor, every eye on her, every alien waiting to see her collapse. But she placed the crate down with shaking arms and lifted her head, her face pale but proud. Whispers spread among the workers, some mocking, some surprised. "She will not last," one muttered. "Perhaps she is stronger than she looks," another whispered. The widow heard them, but she focused only on her son, who smiled faintly, whispering, "You did it, Mama." Those words gave her more strength than anything else could. The work continued, hour after hour, crates, tools, and piles of glowing metal parts. The widow's body screamed with pain, her hands blistered, her clothes soaked in sweat. Yet every time she wanted to fall, she looked at her son, sitting near the traveler, and she forced herself to rise again. The traveler watched her closely, pride flickering in his eyes, but also worry, for he knew how cruel this place could be. By midday, the widow was coughing hard from the smoke, her body near its limit. An alien worker laughed at her. "Weak, just as I said, she will break before the suns fall." The widow forced herself to stand straight, even as her chest burned, and whispered, "I will not break." The traveler gave her a nod, his silent way of saying he believed in her. As the hours dragged on, she began to notice something. The factory was not only dangerous, it was alive with secrets. The machines groaned in strange rhythms, sparks danced like fireflies, and the pipes hissed as if whispering. She realized the factory was not only built for work, it was built for control, a cage disguised as labor. And humans, fragile as they were, seemed able to adapt in ways the aliens could not. Her body hurt, yet she noticed she was learning the rhythm, finding paths between danger where the aliens stumbled. Her child, though weak, studied the machines from afar, his eyes bright with curiosity. At one point, a machine jammed, its gears grinding violently, sparks flying, aliens backed away in fear, shouting for the master. But the boy whispered to his mother, "If they shift the smaller gear, it will stop." The widow blinked in shock, How could her son see such a thing? The traveler overheard and quickly moved, pulling a lever just where the boy said. The machine calmed, the gears falling back into place. The aliens stared, some in anger, some in astonishment. The silver-skinned master narrowed his eyes. How did you know that? The widow held her child close, her heart racing, but the traveler answered smoothly. Humans notice what others miss. The master grunted, displeased but unable to deny the truth. By nightfall, the widow's body felt broken, but she still stood. The traveler guided her out of the factory, her child holding her hand tightly. Behind them, whispers followed, alien voices unset. Aled. Strange. She survived her first day. And the boy, did you see his eyes? Too sharp for a child? The widow walked into the cool night air, her body aching, but her spirit alive. For the first time, she had earned something with her own strength, no matter how small. She looked at the traveler, her voice quiet but firm. Thank you for giving me this chance. The traveler met her gaze, his expression serious. This is only the beginning. The factory hides more than danger, and your son may be part of something larger than either of us. The widow shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of his words. The factory roared behind them, a monster waiting for its next day. But the widow knew she had stepped onto a path that could not be undone. And though fear still burned inside her, hope burned there too, stronger than ever before. The second day in the alien factory began like the first. The widow woke with pain in her arms and back, but she forced herself to rise, because her son's weak smile gave her strength. The traveler walked with them through the smoky streets, silent but steady, his presence like a shield against the cruel eyes of the aliens. The factory roared ahead, its pipes spitting steam into the pale sky, its gates opening like the mouth of a beast ready to swallow them whole. Inside, the machines thundered again, giant gears turning, sparks flashing, and strange fluids dripping from broken pipes. The widow picked up her tasks, crates heavier than her body, tools sharp and dangerous, the smoke burning her lungs with every breath. The aliens sneered as they passed her, whispering, "She will not last long, humans always fall." But she ignored them, keeping her eyes on her son, who sat near the traveler, watching everything with silent curiosity. Her son was no ordinary child. She began to realize that, even though his body was weak and his soul still sharp, his mind seemed sharper than any blade. As she worked, she noticed him pointing quietly to machines, whispering small warnings before things went wrong. Once he said softly, "That pipe will burst soon, it is shaking." And moments later, steam exploded from the same spot, burning an alien worker's arm. The widow froze, her heart pounding. She looked at her son in shock, but he only lowered his eyes as if it was normal. The traveler noticed too, his gaze sharp, his mind turning. He leaned closer to the widow and said quietly, "Your boy sees what others cannot. His mind catches patterns no alien dares to notice." The widow held her child close, whispering, "He is only a boy." But deep down, she knew the traveler was right. Her son was more than just a fragile human child. By midday, the boy's quiet strength became impossible to ignore. A massive conveyor jammed, spilling glowing metal pieces across the floor. The aliens shouted and panicked. The master stormed forward, furious. Before anyone could act, the boy whispered again, "The lever on the left. Pull it before the heat rises." The widow's eyes widened. She shouted to the traveler, who moved without hesitation. He pulled the lever, the gears shifted, the machine calmed, the disaster stopped before it began. The silver-skinned master froze, his cold eyes locking onto the boy. "How did he know?" the master demanded, his voice like grinding metal. The widow's heart raced, fear twisting inside her. She hugged her son tightly, but the traveler stepped forward, calm and firm. "Humans notice what others do not," he said, his voice strong enough to silence the whispers. "That is why we survive." But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder instead. Alien workers looked at the boy with unease, some with anger, others with fear. "He is not normal," one hissed. "His eyes see too much," another muttered. The widow felt their stares like knives in her back, her protective instinct flaring stronger than her fear. As the day ended, she carried her last crate, her arms trim. Bling, her body near collapse. But when she looked at her son, sitting small but proud beside the traveler, she found strength she did not know she had. The traveler gave her a small nod, silent approval, as if saying, "You are stronger than you think." When the shift ended, the widow, her son, and the traveler stepped out into the cool night, the factory smoke rising behind them. The widow sat on a stone near the gates, holding her son close, whispering, "You must be careful, my child. You must not draw too much attention." But the boy looked at her with eyes far older than his years and said, "Mama, if I hide, we will always suffer. If I use what I see, maybe we can change something." Her heart broke at his words, because they were true, yet she wanted to protect him from the world that would crush such light. The traveler crouched beside them, his face serious. "Your son is a gift, but gifts attract envy and fear. You must be ready, because the aliens will not ignore him for long." The widow's hands shook. "What do you mean? What will they do?" The traveler's eyes darkened. "They fear humans for this very reason, because when humans show their true strength, they cannot be controlled." The night grew colder, the streets empty, but the widow could not rest. Her son leaned against her, whispering softly, "I can help you, Mama. I can help him too." Nodding toward the traveler, she kissed his forehead, tears in her eyes. "You are my strength, my son, but you must promise me to be careful. Promise me." The boy nodded, though his eyes still glimmered with quiet determination. The next morning, the factory gates opened again. This time, when the widow stepped inside, she felt every alien stare turn not only toward her, but toward her child. Whispers spread faster than smoke, voices low but sharp. "The boy knows things. He is dangerous. The master must tell the autumn." "Harides!" The widow's heart raced, her instincts screamed danger. She held her son close, her body shielding him, but she knew her arms alone could not protect him forever. And when the silver-skinned master appeared, his cold eyes fixed on the boy, her fear became truth. He pointed a long metal finger at them and said, "The child comes with me." The widow froze, her breath caught, her arms tightened around her son. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "He is mine. You cannot take him." The aliens around them hissed, their voices sharp. "Humans do not refuse the master." The traveler stepped forward, placing himself between the master and the widow, his stance strong, his eyes burning with defiance. "If you want him," the traveler said, his voice steady and cold, "you will have to go through me." The factory floor grew silent, the machine still roaring in the background, but no one moved. The widow's heart pounded, her son's hand clutching her arm tightly. She knew in that moment that the life she had struggled to protect was about to be tested in ways she never imagined, because her child's secret strength was no longer hidden. And now the aliens wanted it for themselves. The factory floor grew heavy with silence. The machines roared behind them, but every alien eye was fixed on the widow, her son, and the human traveler. The silver-skinned master stood tall, his metal-like face unblinking, his finger still pointed at the boy. "The child comes with me. He does not belong to you anymore." The widow's heart twisted. Fear pressed down on her chest like iron. She clutched her son close, whispering, "No, I will not give him." The aliens hissed, their voices sharp and cruel. "Humans cannot refuse. The master has spoken." But before the widow could crumble under the weight of their hatred, the traveler stepped forward, his body like a wall between her and the master. His voice cut through the noise, calm but fierce. "You will not touch the boy, not while I still breathe." The factory erupted with whispers. Shock rippled through the LA. Iron workers, defiance against the master was unheard of. No one dared to speak against his orders. Yet here was a human, standing tall, refusing to bow, refusing to yield. The master narrowed his cold silver eyes, his voice like grinding metal. "You think you can stop me, human? You are nothing but dust, weaker than the machines you serve." The traveler did not flinch, his gaze unshaken. "Humans are not dust. We are fire, and fire cannot be controlled." The widow's knees trembled, but when she looked at the traveler, she felt a strange strength rising within her. He stood for them when no one else would. He faced the master without fear, and for the first time she believed that maybe they were not as powerless as the aliens claimed. The master raised his hand, and alien guards stepped forward, their weapons glowing. The widow gasped, pulling her son tighter against her chest, her heart racing, but the traveler lifted his own hands, not with weapons, but with resolve, his voice steady. "Think carefully before you act. If you harm the boy, you will awaken something even your kind cannot control." The words struck the factory like thunder. The aliens paused, uncertain, fear flickering in their eyes, because deep inside, even they knew humans carried something dangerous, something unpredictable. The master growled, his pride refusing to bend. "What makes this boy so important? Why protect him?" The traveler's voice softened, but carried far. "Because he is human, and because humans see what others cannot. They dream what others fear, and in their dreams, there is freedom." The widow felt tears rise in her eyes, her arms tightening around her son, who looked up at the traveler with wide, shining eyes. The aliens shouted, their voices like a storm. Lies. Humans are weak. Humans are tools, not dreamers. But the widow's boy spoke then, his small voice carrying louder than she thought possible. If humans are weak, then why do you fear us? The words cut through the noise. The entire floor went silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. The master's eyes blazed, his silver skin glowing faintly with anger. He hissed, "The boy must be taken before his words infect others." The guards stepped closer, their weapons humming. The widow's heart nearly stopped, but the traveler moved first, his body low, his fists strong, not with alien weapons but with raw human strength. He struck the nearest guard, sending him crashing to the floor, the sound echoing through the factory. The others hesitated, surprised that a human dared to fight. Chaos broke out, workers scattered, some shouting, some watching in stunned silence. The widow pressed against the wall, shielding her son, her breath fast, her eyes wide. The traveler fought like a storm, his movements sharp, his body bruised but unyielding. He used the factory itself, pulling levers, slamming doors, turning the machines against the guards. Sparks flew, steam hissed, metal groaned, and the air filled with the sound of rebellion. The master roared in fury, his voice shaking the walls. "Seize them, now!" But the guards faltered, some stepping back because the traveler's fire was not something they understood. The widow's son clung to her, whispering, "Mama, he is fighting for us." And for the first time she felt not only fear but pride. The traveler stood bruised and bloodied, but still strong, his eyes burning. He shouted across the chaos, "This is why you fear humans, because we will never bow, because we fight even when we are broken." The words carried through the smoke, through the noise, through every alien ear, and though many hissed in anger, others fell silent as if a seed of doubt had been planted. The master glared, his silver face twisted with rage. "You cannot win, human. You will burn in this factory with your weakness." The traveler's voice rang back, steady and sharp. "Maybe, but if I burn with defiance, and my fire will light up." "Hers!" The widow's heart pounded, her arms around her son, her soul torn between fear and awe. She saw in the traveler not just a man, but a symbol, a shield, a spark that the aliens could not crush. Her son whispered again, "Mama, we are not alone anymore." And she believed him, even as danger closed in. The standoff filled the factory like a storm waiting to break. The master's rage against the traveler's defiance. The widow's fear against her son's quiet courage. The air was thick with smoke and tension. Every second stretched like an eternity. And in that moment, one truth became clear. This was no longer about survival alone. This was about what it meant to be human. The widow held her son tighter. The traveler stood firm. The master's guards hesitated. The factory of steel and smoke had become something more. It had become the place where humans stood, not as beggars, not as slaves, but as a fire the universe could not put out. The factory was drowning in smoke and chaos. The machines roared, guards shouted, and workers scattered in panic. The widow clutched her son against her chest, her heart hammering like a drum, her eyes locked on the traveler who stood firm in front of the silver-skinned master. The master's rage filled the air, his metal-like skin glowing faintly, his voice cutting like a blade. "You cannot defy me, human. You will be crushed like dust." But the traveler did not flinch. Though bruised and bloodied, his stance was strong, his voice steady. "You can break my bones, but you cannot break what makes me human." The widow's son whispered from her arms, his eyes wide with fire, "Mama, he is showing them what we are." She kissed the boy's head, tears burning in her eyes, because she knew her son was right. This was more than one fight. This was a spark for something greater. The master raised his hand, and the guards moved again, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The widow's fear surged, but the traveler shouted, his voice echoing across the factory, "Look around you, workers, slaves, beggars! How long have you been silent? How long have you bowed?" The aliens froze, their eyes darting to one another. The traveler's words cut through their fear like a blade. He pointed to the widow and her child, his voice fierce. "They call us weak, yet this woman carried what no alien dared to carry. This child saw what no alien dared to see. If that is weakness, then weakness is stronger than all of you." The widow felt her knees tremble, but pride swelled in her chest. For the first time she stood taller, not just as a desperate mother, but as a human. The workers murmured, their whispers growing louder, some uncertain, some angry, but all shaken. The master's silver eyes narrowed, rage burning. "Enough! Silence them, or I will silence all of you." The guards charged, but the traveler was ready. He grabbed a loose chain from the ground and swung it, knocking one guard to the floor, sparks flying as weapons clashed against metal. The widow shielded her son as the fight raged, steam hissing, machines screaming like beasts. The traveler moved like fire, every strike fueled not by strength alone, but by will, the will to protect, the will to resist. The widow's son suddenly pulled at her sleeve, his voice urgent. "Mama, the machines, they can help us." She looked at him in shock. "What do you mean?" His small hands pointed to the control levers near the wall. "If the red valve turns, the pressure will burst and distract them. We can escape." The widow's heart pounded. She knew it was dangerous, but there was no time, no choice. She ran, holding her son tight, dodging the chaos. The traveler fighting to keep the guards away. Her hands grabbed the valve. It burned her palms, but she forced it, twisting with all her strength. The machine roared, steam exploding into the air, clouds of heat and smoke filling the factory floor. Aliens shouted in panic, stumbling as fog blinded them, the guards losing their aim. The traveler saw the chance, his voice booming, "Now go!" The widow dashed toward him, her son clinging to her, the traveler cutting through the smoke to meet them. Together they ran, through corridors shaking with the fury of the machines, past workers who watched with wide eyes, some whispering, some silently cheering. The master's roar echoed behind them. "You cannot run forever, humans. I will find you. I will take what is mine." But his voice sounded less like a ruler and more like a wounded beast. And in that moment, the widow realized something. The master was afraid of them, afraid of what their defiance meant. They burst through the factory gates, into the night air of Varus, the smoke rising behind them like a burning signal. The widow collapsed to her knees, holding her son close, her chest heaving with exhaustion, her hands burned, her body aching. But her son smiled weakly, his eyes shining. "We did it, Mama. We are free." The traveler stood tall beside them, his face scarred, his eyes tired but burning with pride. He looked down at the widow, his voice calm. "This was only one fight, but it is the beginning of something larger. Do you see now?" The widow nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, I see. They call us weak, but weakness has carried us this far. Weakness has become our strength." The boy lifted his small hand, pointing at the glowing city beyond. "If we can stand, others can stand too. Maybe all humans can." The traveler's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Exactly. They fear us not because we are weak, but because when we rise together, and nothing can stop that fire." The widow felt hope bloom in her chest, fragile but real. For the first time in years, she did not see herself as a beggar or a burden. She saw herself as part of something greater. She looked at her son, her voice steady. "You are the future, my child, and the future is brighter than they want us to believe." Behind them, the factory still roared, but its noise now felt distant, like the cries of a dying beast. Before them stretched the unknown path, dangerous and uncertain, yet filled with possibility. The traveler placed a strong hand on the widow's shoulder, guiding her forward. "We keep moving, we keep fighting, and we keep hoping." And so they walked into the night, three figures against a universe that had always tried to crush them. But they carried with them something no chain could bind, no master could silence, and no fear could kill. They carried hope, and that hope, born in the heart of a poor widow, her brilliant child, and the defiance of one human traveler, would spread. It would travel through whispers, through courage, through small acts of resistance, until one day the whole galaxy would know that humanity was not weak, humanity was not broken, humanity was the fire that even the stars could not put out.